It was supposed to be a quiet night in the ER. No scheduled surgeries, no traumas on the board, and the usual drunks and sprained ankles had already been processed. I'd even made myself a cup of tea, a rare luxury on a night shift. The monitors hummed their familiar rhythm, and the fluorescent lights above buzzed softly, casting a pale glow over the empty triage bays. Nights like this are when you catch your breath. Nights like this are when you let your guard down. That's why I jumped when I heard the ambulance bay doors slam open. 2 paramedics wheeled in a gurney fast, too fast for a stable patient. Their faces were tight, eyes locked straight ahead. The woman on the gurney was covered with a white sheet up to her chin. I caught sight of something that made me pause, a hospital tag on her wrist, and another around her ankle. I stepped forward. "What have you got?" The lead medic shook his head. "You're not gonna believe this, doc. Cardiac arrest, unresponsive at the scene, pronounced at 9:47 p.m. He glanced at the wall clock. It was 11:02 now. No pulse, no respiration. We were just transferring her to the morgue at St. Mary's. When she moved, I blinked at him. Moved. He nodded grimly, sat up halfway, eyes open, started making sounds. A chill ran down my spine, but I forced myself into clinical mode. "Vitals." He handed me the chart. Blank vitals sheet. No readings since the time of death. "She's still showing flatline on our monitor," he added. I pulled the sheet down from her face. Mid-40s pale, lips tinged blue. Her eyes were closed now, but her skin was still warm. Too warm for someone dead over an hour. "Let's get her into Bay 3, I said, motioning to the nurse. "I want an ECG, blood gases, the works." As we wheeled her in, I leaned over to check her airway. That's when her eyes snapped open, not slowly, like someone waking from unconsciousness, but wide, sudden, aware. And she whispered, her voice raw and broken. "They didn't finish." I froze. Who didn't? But her gaze was locked on the ceiling, as if seeing something I couldn't. The heart monitor next to us flickered, but the line stayed flat. No pulse, no electrical activity, and yet, her lips moved again. "They're still here." For a moment, the room felt smaller, like the air had thickened around us, pressing down on my chest. I glanced at the monitor again, certain it would show at least some electrical blip, but it didn't. The screen still glowed with that steady, impossible flatline. Nurse Patel hesitated beside me, holding the ECG leads like they might burn her fingers. "Doc, you're seeing this, right?" "She's talking." I nodded, but my mind was already running through every explanation. Hypothermia, misread time of death, severe artifact interference. None of those explained why her eyes followed me as I moved. We hooked her up anyway. The ECG printer spat out a strip of paper, nothing but a straight black line, flat dead, and yet, her chest rose and fell, shallow but visible. Patel leaned in with a flashlight, checking her pupils. "Reactive," she murmured, "and she's tracking." I tried again. "Ma'am, can you tell me your name?" Her lips parted, but what came out wasn't a name. It was laughter. Low, breathless, wrong. It sounded too old for her voice, like it belonged to someone decades older. The paramedics exchanged a glance. One of them muttered, "We should have just kept driving to the morgue." Then the lights above us flickered. Not the quick stutter you get in old buildings, but a slow, deliberate dimming, like something was sucking the power out of the air. The heart monitor let out a shrill beep and went black. Patel swore under her breath, turning toward the door to grab another machine. That's when the patient's hand shot out from under the sheet and grabbed my wrist. Her grip was ice cold, far stronger than it should have been for someone in her state. I tried to pull away, but her fingers only tightened, nails digging into my skin. When she spoke this time, her voice was a whisper meant only for me. "They're watching you now, too." The lights snapped back on. The monitor restarted with a cheerful digital chirp, and her hand slid back under the sheet like nothing had happened. Patel returned with the replacement monitor, her expression confused. "What just happened? Why are you so pale?" I didn't answer, because in the reflection of the monitor's screen, I'd just seen something move behind me. Something that wasn't there when I turned around. Patel noticed the way I froze. "Doc," she asked softly. I forced my voice steady. "Let's just keep going." But I kept one eye on the corners of the room, where the light didn't quite reach. We ran another full panel of vitals. Nothing. No pulse, no respiration, zero oxygen saturation. And yet she lay there, blinking occasionally, breathing just enough to fog the air in front of her lips. I leaned closer. "Why are you here?" Her gaze slid past me to the far corner of the bay. I followed it. Nothing there, just a shadow stretching from the forepole. But it seemed wrong, angled as if the light source were somewhere else entirely. The overhead intercom crackled to life. "Code blue, room 12, a voice announced. Patel frowned. "We don't have a room 12. The patient's lips curled into a slow, almost satisfied smile. Then, under her breath, she whispered, "You do now." The overhead lights dimmed again, and a metallic scent, sharp, like iron, filled the bay. Patel gagged. "What is that smell?" I didn't answer. Because behind the curtain, on the other side of the bed, the shadow moved, not flickered, not swayed, but walked. I yanked the curtain back, expecting to see a person. There was no one. But the shadow remained, cast on the wall as if by a body that wasn't there. The patient spoke louder now, her voice raspy but clear. "They're going to take the doors away. Then you can't leave." I stepped back, bumping into Patel. Her face was pale, eyes locked on the monitor. It was showing a pulse now, but the waveform was jagged, unnatural, beating in bursts that didn't match any human rhythm I'd ever seen. Then, for just a second, every monitor in the ER beeped in unison. And in that single second, I swear I heard a second set of footsteps in the room with us. The footsteps didn't echo away, they simply stopped, like whoever made them had decided to remain just out of sight. The hair on the back of my neck rose. I scanned Bay 3 from top to bottom, taking in every shadow, every reflection in the polished steel surfaces. Nothing moved, yet the feeling of being watched pressed down harder with each second. Patel broke the silence first. "Doc, the central station's frozen." She gestured toward the nurse's station monitor beyond the curtain. The screen that normally displayed every patient's vitals had locked mid. All the lines, heart rate, oxygen, respiration, were frozen in strange, jagged patterns. A metallic temps filled my nose again, sharper now, almost like the scent of blood after surgery. My eyes watered. "Check the backup," I said, keeping my voice steady. She ducked out to the hall. I turned back to the patient, who was staring at the ceiling with the kind of stillness that isn't natural for the living. "Do you hear that?" I asked her quietly. Her eyes rolled toward me, but she didn't blink. Then she mouthed something. No sound, just the deliberate shape of words. "Look behind you." I spun, my heart hammering. The curtain on the far side of the bay was swaying. Not lightly, like from air conditioning, but in deep, steady movements, as if someone invisible was brushing past it again and again. The overhead lights dimmed, and this time they didn't come back all at once. They flickered, staying off longer between bursts of light, turning the room into a strobe-lit nightmare. Patel returned, face pale. "The backup system's dead too. Whole Oz losing power, but the generators haven't kicked in." A loud pop snapped our heads toward the patient's monitor. Smoke curled from its vents. The screen went black. The patient's lips moved again, this time with sound. "They've cut the lines." I tried to ask what she meant, but every light in Bay 3 went out at once, plunging us into total darkness. I heard Patel gasp in the blackness, followed by the unmistakable creak of something heavy shifting on the floor, something moving closer. Then, just inches from my ear, a whisper. "You can't resuscitate the dead." The lights blinked back on. The bed was empty. The bed was empty. No sheets, no indent, nothing to suggest anyone had been lying there moments ago. The ECG leads dangled uselessly, swinging like they'd been ripped away, their adhesive pads curling in the air. Patel clutched the clipboard to her chest, her knuckles white. "Doc, she was just here." I forced myself toward the doorway, scanning the hall. Nothing. The corridor outside was deserted, save for the low hum of the flickering overheads. My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Check the security feed, now." We hurried to the central station. The screens were working again, though half were grainy with static. Patel pulled up Bay 3's camera. My stomach twisted. At first the footage looked normal. Me, Patel, the patient in bed. The lights flickered. I watched myself turn toward the sound behind me. Then the image warped, bending at the edges, like heat rising from asphalt. And in the next frame, the patient was gone. No movement, no blurring, just gone between one flicker of light and the next. But the sheets, they didn't simply fall flat, they deflated slowly, as if something unseen had slid out from under them and stood there, watching. Patel's voice was a whisper. "Rewind it." I did. Same thing. We played it again. Same impossible gap. Then the feed began to distort further, filling with black streaks that crawled across the image like ink dropped into water. Through the distortion, shapes moved, tall narrow figures, bending at unnatural angles, leaning close to the camera lens. One of them turned its head toward us. Patel slammed the monitor off, her breathing quick. "We need to call security." I picked up the desk phone, but there was no dial tone, just a low, pulsing hiss that seemed to throb in my ear. The longer I held it, the louder it got, until I could almost hear something beneath it. Words, "Room 12. The same non-existent room from earlier. Patel grabbed my arm. "Doc, look." I turned back toward Bay 3. The bed was no longer empty. The patient was back, lying exactly as before, eyes open, staring straight at us. But this time, her mouth was stretched into a grin that was far too wide for her face. I didn't remember walking back into Bay 3. One second I was at the nurse's station, staring at that smile, and the next I was standing at the foot of her bed, my breath slow and shallow, as if I'd been holding it for too long. Patel stood a step behind me. "Doc, something's wrong with the room." I followed her gaze. She was right. The walls were closer together than they should have been, shrinking the bay into a narrower space. The medical cart by the wall seemed pressed against the bed, though I knew it had been a full meter away minutes earlier. I forced my focus back to the patient. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her smile never changed, but her eyes moved, not to me, but to the curtain. I turned. The curtain now covered both the entrance and the side of the bed, sealing us in. I hadn't touched it. Patel swore under her breath and reached for it, but the fabric was stiff, like cold leather. Then the overhead light shifted, not flickered, moved. The shadow it cast stretched sideways across the wall, as if the light source itself was sliding around the ceiling. The patient finally spoke. "You don't know where you are anymore, do you?" Patel's breathing grew faster. "This isn't the same bay. The floor tiles..." I glanced down. The beige tiles of the ER were gone, replaced by faded linoleum patterned with pink roses. My chest tightened. I'd seen that pattern before. It was the flooring in my grandmother's old house, the one that had been torn down decades ago. How I started, but the patient interrupted. "They know what you fear. They build it around you." A deep rumble vibrated through the floor, low and slow, like a distant train. The medical cart toppled over, instruments spilling and rolling, but instead of hitting the baseboards, they vanished beneath the curtain. Patel backed into me. "Doc." The exit. I turned. The doorway was gone. Only the curtain remained, stretching from wall to wall. Then something pressed against it from the other side. A shape, tall and thin, sliding upward until its head nearly touched the ceiling. It lingered there, as if listening. The patient's grin widened, teeth impossibly white in the dim light. "They'll open the door soon." I swallowed hard. "What door?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The one you can't close." The shape beyond the curtain leaned closer. The fabric indented as if a face pressed against it from the other side. And then the curtain began to bulge inward, stretching unnaturally, as though whatever was there was about to step through. Patel grabbed my arm. "We have to move now." I reached for the side rail of the bed, and realized the patient was gone again. Patel and I stumbled backward, away from the bulging curtain. The shape pressing against it didn't follow us. Not yet. My pulse thudded in my ears as I scanned for another way out. The back of Bay 3 had a small service door, normally used for supply runs. I yanked it open. Instead of the narrow storeroom, we were staring into a long, empty hallway. Patel hesitated. "That's not supposed to be here." It wasn't. This corridor was wrong. Too wide, too clean, lined with evenly spaced overhead lights that seemed to fade into infinity. No signs, no doors, just endless pale walls and polished floor. We stepped inside. Our footsteps echoed unnaturally, each one hanging in the air a second too long. Behind us, the service door clicked shut on its own. I tried the handle. It wouldn't turn. We just follow it until we hit an intersection, I said, trying to sound in control. But after a full minute of walking, the hallway never changed. Same lights, same walls. Patel started glancing over her shoulder every few seconds. Then she stopped dead. Doc, look, far ahead. One of the lights flickered, not randomly, but in a pattern, like a slow, deliberate pulse. We walked faster. The flickering light seemed to retreat as we approached, always staying the same distance away. I decided to test something. Stop walking, I said. We froze. The flickering light ahead stopped too. Then the sound began, faint at first, like fabric dragging on the floor. It was coming from behind us. Patel whispered, "Don't turn around." I ignored her and looked at the far end of the hallway. The end we'd entered from the curtain from Bay 3 was there, just hanging in place, completely still. We'd walked in a straight line. There was no way it should be there. The dragging sound grew louder. The curtain bulged, just as before, and something stepped through. It didn't walk, it glided, its long frame folding slightly to fit the corridor. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, like it was studying us. Patel grabbed my sleeve. "Run." We sprinted toward the flickering light. The hallway stretched on, impossibly long, but the figure behind us moved faster than it should have, closing the gap without seeming to take a single step. I looked up. The flickering light was suddenly right above us, and beneath it, a door. I didn't hesitate. I shoved it open, and we tumbled inside into total darkness. The door slammed shut behind us with a metallic thud that echoed far too long, like we'd stepped into a hollow metal box. The darkness was absolute. I couldn't see Patel, couldn't even see my own hands. My breathing sounded too loud, like the air itself was pressing in on my chest. I reached out, feeling for a wall. My fingertips brushed something cold and smooth. Not plaster, not tile. It was metal, but warm in certain spots, as if something had recently touched it from the other side. Patel's voice came from my left, shaky and close. "This isn't a hospital room." No, it wasn't. There was no hospital smell, no disinfectant, no stale air from the vents. Instead, there was a faint scent of damp earth, like we were underground. I took a cautious step forward, and the floor creaked under my weight. Wood, old, warped wood. My shoe brushed against something, and it rolled away with a hollow clink. I crouched and picked it up. A metal tag, rectangular bent, with a name etched into it. My stomach dropped. It was Patel's name. Before I could speak, a dim light flared overhead, a single bare bulb swinging from a wire. The room around us came into view. It wasn't a room. It was a holding cell. The metal walls were scratched deep with gouges that looked like fingernail marks. Chains hung from hooks along one wall, swaying slightly even though there was no breeze. And in the far corner, half in shadow, sat the patient. She was upright, knees drawn to her chest, her hands clasped loosely over her ankles. But her face, it wasn't the same. Her skin looked stretched too tightly over her cheekbones, her eyes darker, pupils wide and unblinking. "You found the room," she said, her voice echoing strangely in the small space. Patel took a step back toward the door. "We're leaving." The patient tilted her head. "There's no leaving. You came through the wrong hallway." I tried the door. The handle turned easily, but when I pulled it open, it didn't lead back to the corridor. Instead, it opened onto another cell, this one empty, except for a single hospital bed with straps hanging loosely from its frame. The bulb above us flickered, and the chains on the wall rattled. The patient's smile returned, slow and deliberate. "They'll be here soon. They always come when the light goes out." The bulb flickered again, then again. And on the third flicker, something else was in the cell with us. The bulb's last flicker stretched longer than the others, buzzing faintly before plunging us into complete black. In that instant, the air grew heavy, not warmer, not colder, but thicker, as though breathing required effort. Somewhere to my right, I heard the slow drag of bare feet across the wooden floor. Patel's breath hitched. "Doc," she whispered, but the word was swallowed by the darkness like it didn't want sound to exist here. The patient's voice floated from the far corner. "You'll feel them before you see them." I didn't want to ask, but the silence between each dragging step demanded it. "Feel what?" Her answer was a rasp that slid into my ear, as if she were suddenly inches away. "The ones who built the hallway, The sound came again, closer now. My instincts screamed to back away, but my hand hit cold metal after only a step. The wall, the cell felt smaller. Something brushed my sleeve. Not a full touch, more like the light graze of fingertips, but the weight of it lingered. I jerked away, colliding with Patel. She gasped, and in the dark, I could hear her trembling. Then a smell of damp soil, mixed with rust. My stomach turned. That same metallic tints had followed us since Bay 3. The bulb blinked once, and for a split second, I saw them. Tall shapes, almost human but stretched wrong, their limbs too long, their shoulders sloping forward. Their heads were bent at angles that suggested no bone structure, no spine. And where faces should have been, there was only smooth, pale skin. The light died again. The sound of chains rattling rose from the wall, then stopped abruptly. And in that pause, I realized there were more of them now. I could hear the faint creak of the floor in every direction, around us, behind us, above us. Patel whispered, "Dock the door." I reached for it in the dark, my palm skimming the wall until I found the frame. The handle turned easily, but when I pulled, it resisted as if something on the other side was holding it shut. The patient laughed softly, the sound curling into the blackness. "They're not here for me this time." My grip tightened. "Who are they here for?" Her answer came with a low hiss of air, close enough for me to feel it against my cheek. "You." The bulb exploded overhead, showering us with fragments of glass. In the sudden darkness, I felt a hand, cold, impossibly strong, wrap around my wrist. The grip on my wrist was like iron, not crushing, but unyielding, as if whatever held me could snap bone without effort. My first instinct was to pull back, but the harder I tried, the more it drew me forward, slow and deliberate. Patel's hand clamped onto my free arm. "I've got you," she said, her voice shaking. I could hear the chains on the wall rattling again, faster now, almost in rhythm with my pulse. The patient didn't move from her corner. She just watched, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim ambient light that seemed to come from nowhere. "You'll go either way," she murmured. "It's easier if you don't fight." I tried to plant my feet, but the wooden floor beneath me felt slick, like it was coated in a thin layer of oil. My shoes slid an inch at a time toward the far wall. I was no longer in control of my own movement. Then, with no sound, the wall in front of me split. Not like a door swinging open, but like the metal and wood peeled apart, revealing a black void. It wasn't just dark, it was absence. The kind of black that seemed to swallow the air before it could reach your lungs. Patel yanked hard, breaking my focus. For a second, the pull on my wrist loosened. "Move," she shouted. We stumbled sideways, aiming for the original cell door, but it was gone. The wall was seamless metal, the same cold surface that had scraped my knuckles earlier. The grip returned, harder this time, and I felt myself being drawn toward the void again. My knees buckled as an invisible pressure closed around my chest. My heartbeat slowed, each thump echoing in my ears like it was coming from far away. Patel screamed something, maybe my name, but her voice sounded muffled, like she was on the other side of thick glass. The patient's voice was crystal clear. "They don't open that door for everyone. You should be honored." I fought harder, twisting my wrist until my skin burned. My fingers brushed something in my pocket, the metal name tag with Patel's name on it. Without thinking, I shoved it toward the invisible grip. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. The pressure on my wrist vanished, and the void in the wall pulsed, as though it had been struck. A low guttural sound rose from it, not quite a roar, not quite a scream. The chains on the wall snapped taut, flinging sparks as they strained against their hooks. Patel grabbed my arm again, and this time we both ran. Not knowing where to go, but desperate to put distance between us and that impossible opening. As we reached the far corner, the wall shifted. A doorframe appeared, simple, wooden, completely out of place in the metal cell. Without hesitating, we shoved it open and stumbled through. The moment we crossed the threshold, the door slammed behind us. I spun around, but there was no door anymore. Just another long hallway, dimly lit, lined with doors on either side. Patel bent over, gasping for breath. "Where are we now?" Before I could answer, the first door on the left creaked open by itself, and from the darkness inside, something whispered my name. The whisper slithered into my ears like cold air under a door. Hearing my name in that tone, not shouted, not called, but invited, froze me mid-step. Patel looked up at me, eyes wide, silently asking if I'd heard it too. I nodded. The door on the left hung open, just enough to show nothing beyond it but black. But unlike the void from the cell, this darkness didn't feel empty. It felt expectant. Patel shook her head. We keep moving. We passed the first door, then the second, then the third. And that's when I realized something was wrong. Each door had a small brass plaque above the frame, tarnished and scratched, but still legible. The first one had my last name engraved, the second, my middle name, the third, my childhood nickname, one I hadn't heard in decades. I stopped at the fourth. It bore my full name, exactly as it appeared on my medical license. The plaque felt warm when I touched it. Patel grabbed my wrist. Don't. But the whisper came again, clearer this time. Come in. The doorknob was ice cold, the kind of cold that stings your palm. I turned it before I could think. The door swung open without a sound. What lay beyond made my knees go weak. It was the pediatric wing of the first hospital I ever worked in, down to the scuffed linoleum floors and faded wall murals. I could smell the faint sweetness of antiseptic mixed with crayon wax. The lights buzzed faintly, just as I remembered. Patel's voice trembled. This isn't possible. I stepped inside. The air was heavier here, but warm, almost comforting. I could hear faint laughter in the distance, high-pitched and echoing, like children playing down the hall. But there was no one. We walked toward the sound, passing open exam rooms, each one perfectly replicated from memory. The posters, the old rolling stools, the battered metal cabinets. Some had small toys left on the counters, just as I'd seen them years ago. Then we reached room 214. I froze. Room 214 was where I'd lost my first patient, a little boy named Adam. It had been a simple procedure, routine even, but something had gone wrong. I'd replayed that night in my mind hundreds of times, never finding an answer. The door to 214 was ajar. A soft glow leaked from the crack. Patel whispered, "We need to go back." But my feet moved on their own. I pushed the door open. Inside, the bed was made, the sheets crisp and white. On the pillow sat a single object, a small worn stuffed bear. Adam's bear, the same one his mother had clutched when I'd told her the news. And sitting in the chair beside the bed was Adam. He looked exactly as he had that night, pale, small eyes half-lidded. But when he looked up at me, he smiled. You never stopped wondering, did you? I couldn't move. The sight of him exactly as he'd been on the night he died pinned me in place. My throat felt tight, like if I tried to speak, the words would come out in a broken whisper. Patel stayed in the doorway, her hand gripping the frame so hard her knuckles were white. She didn't say a word. Adam's head tilted slightly. You still think it was your fault. The sound of his voice was wrong. It wasn't the thin, tired voice of a sick child. It had weight, resonance, like an adult speaking through him. The words vibrated somewhere deep in my chest. My voice cracked. I don't know what happened that night. His smile didn't fade. You do. You just buried it. I took a step closer, my eyes flicking to the stuffed bear on the bed. The stitching on its right paw was torn. I remembered that. I'd been holding it when the monitors flatlined. I'd dropped it without realizing. The sound of it hitting the floor burned into my memory. Why are you here? I asked. He leaned forward in the chair. Because you walked through their doors. And they like to show you what you can't let go. Patel spoke for the first time. Doc, that's not him. We have to go. Adam ignored her. You were in the room when it happened. Do you remember the shadow in the corner? The hairs on my neck stood up. I had remembered something a moment during the code when the fluorescent light over the bed dimmed, and for a split second, there had been something in the far corner. I'd told myself it was a trick of the eye, my brain filling in shapes in the chaos. Adam's smile widened. It wasn't a trick. It was them. And they've been here longer than you've been alive. I stepped back. Why are you telling me this? His voice dropped. Because you're not leaving this place unless you understand. They don't just watch. They choose. Patel moved to my side, her voice sharp. We're leaving now. The lights above us flickered. The warmth of the room drained in an instant. replaced by a cold that clawed straight through my skin. Adam's head tilted again, farther this time, far enough that I should have heard the crack of bone. "They're already behind you." Patel grabbed my arm, spinning me toward the door. Standing just beyond it, in the hallway, were two of the tall, faceless figures. Their shoulders nearly brushed the ceiling, their pale heads tilting in unison. The door to room 214 slammed shut between us, but not before one of them stepped forward and placed a hand against the glass panel, leaving behind a dark, smudged print. The slam of the door reverberated through the pediatric wing, a deep, hollow sound that seemed to shake the air more than the walls. Patel's grip on my arm was unrelenting as she pulled me back from room 214. "Move," she hissed, already scanning the hallway for an exit. But the hallway had changed. The once bright murals were peeling, their cheerful colors dulled to sickly grays. The buzzing fluorescent lights overhead popped one by one, plunging sections into shadow. I glanced back. The glass panel in the door was no longer clear. It was clouded over, streaked from the inside, as though something had pressed against it with wet hands. Patel urged me forward. "We'll find the main hall." The floor shuddered beneath our feet. A low groan echoed through the wing, the sound of wood and metal bending under stress. One of the ceiling tiles near the far end dropped, smashing on the floor in a spray of dust. I tried to steady my breathing. "This place, it's not stable." "No," Patel said. "It's not real." We passed the nurse's station. The once orderly counter was overturned, its contents scattered. A rolling chair spun slowly in place, though no one was near it. On the wall behind it hung a dry erase board, the kind we used for shift notes. In thick red markers scrawled over every inch of it were the words, "DONT, look back." Patel didn't hesitate. She pulled me past it. I almost obeyed, but curiosity won for half a second. I looked over my shoulder. The hallway behind us was gone. In its place was a narrow, black corridor lined with those faceless figures, shoulder to shoulder, their featureless heads all turned toward me. One stepped forward. I whipped my head forward again and nearly collided with Patel as she stopped abruptly. In front of us, a set of double doors stood ajar, the faintest light seeping through the crack. We pushed them open and found ourselves in a stairwell. The metal steps spiraled down farther than I could see. The walls were concrete, damp and cold to the touch. Somewhere far below, water dripped in slow, steady beats. Patel started down first. "This has to lead somewhere." We descended, counting landings, 1, 2, 3. But no matter how far we went, the door at the next landing always led to the same pediatric hallway we'd just left. Only each time it looked worse. More decay, more peeling paint, the smell of rot growing stronger. By the sixth landing, the light above us was so dim, I could barely see Patel's outline ahead of me. I reached for the railing and froze. It was warm, too warm. And under my palm, the metal pulsed once, like a slow heartbeat. "Patel," I whispered. "Stop." She turned, but her expression shifted to horror before I could explain. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, up the stairs. I followed her gaze. Something was coming down after us. The sound came first, not footsteps, not exactly. It was heavy or dragging, as though something vast and jointless was hauling itself down the stairs. Each contact with the metal steps sent a dull vibration through the railing into my hand. Patel was frozen, one foot on the next step down, her hand gripping the wall for balance. "Doc," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the metallic groan above us. I tilted my head just enough to see. Something emerged from the shadows on the landing above, its limbs too long for the width of the stairs, folding in unnatural ways to fit. Its skin was that same smooth, pale surface I'd seen before, but now it gleamed wetly under the flickering stairwell bulb. Where its face should have been, there was only a wide, concave indentation, like something had pressed inward from the outside. It paused when it saw me, or maybe it had never stopped seeing me. Patel hissed, "Move," and started down faster, nearly slipping on the slick steps. I followed, but the thing above mirrored our pace exactly, moving with grotesque precision, a step for every step, never hurrying, never lagging. The air grew colder as we descended. The damp concrete walls seemed to close in, the spiral tightening. My hand brushed the wall and came away wet, streaked with something dark that didn't smell like water. We hit the 9th landing. The door here was different. Heavy steel, no handle, just a small square window set at eye level. I peered through, expecting another copy of the pediatric hallway. Instead, I saw the cell from before, the chain swaying slowly, the bare bulb overhead flickering in and out. And in the corner, the patient sat exactly as we'd left her, her head tilted, smiling directly at me through the glass. Patel yanked me away. Keep going. The thing above was closer now, its limbs bending to slip through the tight spiral without ever breaking rhythm. The sound of its movement was wrong, not the sharp tap of footfalls, but the deep, rhythmic drag of something massive and patient. By the 12th landing, the light failed entirely. We ran in near blackness, guided only by the faint metallic glint of the steps ahead. My lungs burned and I could hear Patel's breathing turning ragged. Then another door. Wooden this time, utterly ordinary, as if plucked from someone's living room. A thin line of warm, golden light glowed at the base. Patel didn't hesitate. She shoved it open, and we stumbled through. We were no longer in the stairwell. We stood in what looked like a small suburban kitchen, sunlight streaming through lace curtains. A kettle whistled softly on the stove. For a heartbeat, it felt safe. Then the sound of metal steps came again, not behind us, but above. Somewhere, impossibly, the stairwell had followed us. The golden light from the kitchen windows felt warm on my skin, almost enough to convince me the stairwell and the thing descending it had been a hallucination born of fear. Almost. Patel leaned against the counter, catching her breath. "We need to figure out where this is," she said, scanning the cabinets as if opening one might reveal an exit. The kettle on the stove kept whistling. At first, it was a normal high-pitched note, but as the seconds passed, the sound warped, deepening into a tone that vibrated in my teeth. Patel turned to look at me. "Doc, it's not steam." I followed her gaze. The spout wasn't releasing vapor. It was exhaling something thick, black, and slow, like oil turned to mist. The air grew heavier with every breath of it. I stepped toward the window, desperate for fresh air. The lace curtains swayed gently, as though stirred by a breeze. I pulled them aside. The sunlight outside wasn't sunlight. It was a pale, unbroken expanse, like the surface of a giant milky eye. And as I stared, a ripple passed through it, and the faint outline of a tall, faceless shape pressed against the other side of the glass. The kitchen dimmed, not gradually, instantly. The golden glow evaporated, leaving us in a gray half-light that flattened every shadow. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and rot. From the ceiling above, the metallic clang of the stairwell steps grew louder. Something was descending into the house, even though the ceiling was far too low for such a space to exist. Patel gripped my arm. "We need another door." We moved quickly, yanking open every one we could find. Pantry, closet, basement hatch, but each revealed the same thing. The pediatric hallway, more decayed each time, with the faceless figures lined up further inside. The whistle from the kettle stopped. The silence that followed was total. No hum of appliances, no creak of floorboards, not even the sound of our own breathing. Then, from directly behind us, the unmistakable sound of a footstep on tile. I turned slowly. The creature stood in the center of the kitchen. In the dull gray light, I could see its surface more clearly now, not smooth, but covered in faint impressions, as if countless hands had pressed into it over time. Its head tilted forward, faceless but intent. It raised one long, jointless arm and pointed at the back door. Patel whispered, "It's letting us go." The thing's head tilted the other way. The gesture looked almost like curiosity. I stepped toward the back door, but as soon as my hand touched the knob, I realized the truth. The door wasn't wood, it was warm, and it pulsed. The surface beneath my palm shivered once, and then the entire kitchen seemed to lean toward us, as if the walls themselves were alive. Behind me, the creature took another step. The back door began to open from the other side.